BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello, I'm Phil Goodlad and this is the Scottish Football Podcast, keeping you up to speed with everything you need to know about our beautiful game. It's Tuesday, 24th of September. Good gracious, look at the date. Here's what's coming up today.
They're now left with a mammoth job of getting the right person in, and only they'll know behind the scenes what direction they want to take the club in.
A mammoth task, but who's in the frame as Hearts hunt for Naismith's replacement? Also,
a solid team that has a lot of experience. They've been playing Europe a lot of years. They've got some experienced players. They're in good form, I would say.
We hear from Rangers title winner Filip Helander about what his old club can expect when they take on another of his former teams, Malmo, later this week. And
Brown smashes it, it's deflected into the net!
Chance again and the ball's in the net! It's a double for Craig Hornby!
Here comes Johnny Hayes, he goes from distance! What a goal!
It brings back to Barry Ferguson!
We discuss the return of some bona fide Scottish football legends.
The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sports Scotland.
Great to have you along today. I'm delighted to say that one of those bona fide Scottish legends is the former man of many clubs, Lee Miller. Lee, you're a legend at last. How does it feel?
I don't know about that. But no, I enjoyed my career spanning over 22 years. So, no, I enjoyed it. So I'll see what happens in the Masters coming up.
Yeah, I think we should probably put some context into why I'm lavishing the praise on you this morning that I am. But you've been lined up to play for Aberdeen in the Masters event in front of the BBC Scotland cameras later this year. It always worries me when a player is labelled a legend at their club because they're just a bad performance away from getting it from the fans.
Yeah, see, to be honest, I obviously had a lot of clubs over my career, but I had a really successful time up in Aberdeen, and I struck off with the fans as well, and I enjoyed my time up there, and we were pretty successful in the European running and whatnot. So, no, I enjoyed it up there, and it'll be good to see some old faces as well and come up against some old faces in other teams as well. No, I'm looking forward to it. I do get the fear of my calves just cramping up actually thinking about running about that carpet, but we'll see how that goes.
Aberdeen fans, if you're listening, the legend of your club is already getting the excuses in for later this year. Listen, before we go on, Lee, here's a question for you. How does it feel to hear this?
Is it Lennon Miller, the designated penalty taker? Young man taking on the responsibility. His dad Lee's just across to the left in the main stand here. He's seen his boy score some good goals already in his fledgling career. He might not score a bigger one than this if he can convert. Miller scores! And Motherwell surely now on the brink of a place in the semi-final of the League Cup. They scored 2 minutes into first half stoppage time. They've scored 2 minutes into second half stoppage time. The fans are spilling onto the pitch. They are absolutely delirious as Lennon Miller makes it. Motherwell 2, Dundee United 1.
Now, there's nothing like an injury time penalty for nerves. Motherwell, Dundee United, they mean nothing to me as far as supporters are concerned. And yet at 20-10 on Friday night, when I was washing up after our meal, to hear that on the radio, I was nervous. What was it like when it was your boy that was doing it?
Oh, honest to God, Phil, it was like, I've watched Lennon all his days and I've played as a player, but that night up in the stand is the most nervous I have ever been watching a game or being at a game. Like, I could hardly watch, to be honest. And I knew, the thing is, I knew he'd be the calmest person in the stadium. He's chilled, he's confident, he's assured in his own ability. But all I could think of was, please score, please don't dink it, please score, please don't dink it. So, no, to see it go in was, I was so proud of what he's achieved so far in his career, and just, he goes from strength to strength, and Motherwell deserved it. They played well that night, and it's just a great occasion for the club and for him personally.
Why not dink it? Why not score the penalty with panache rather than just do what I mean, to be honest, he failed in the penalty stakes. Okay, he scored, but I mean, you want to score with a bit of panache, Lee.
Do you know what? I said to him after the game, I said, how were you? Were you nervous and stuff? And he was like, no, I was all right, but I was dinking it up to the last step. And I went, nah, no chance. But he said, obviously, when you're a penalty taker and you see the goalie go slightly early, it makes your mind up, and he's went the opposite side, and just I thought, oh my God, see if he had dinked that and missed it. Oh, but then if he had dinked it and scored it, it'd have been a different. But listen, just let him do his thing. He's confident, and he believes in himself, and the club and the team believe in him as well. And Kettlewell and a few players had a few nice things to say about him, and he's just doing his thing, and I'm quite happy that he's enjoying his football at Motherwell.
Yeah, it was a great moment, even if it was in the kitchen, listening to it on the radio, not in the stands like you were. But yeah, a 91st minute penalty. Listen, lots more to discuss with Lee. Firstly, let's get you up to date with the Scottish football headlines. The Rangers interim chairman John Gilligan has called on major shareholder Dave King to stop publicly criticising the way the club is being run. After being sacked by Hearts at the weekend, Stephen Naismith has backed the Tynecastle board, saying they're the right people to guide the club and to take them to the next level. The board incidentally met last night, and Chief Executive Andrew McKinlay says the process of finding Naismith's replacement has already begun. And Aberdeen, Celtic, Dundee United and Rangers legends will compete live on BBC Scotland TV in November's Scottish Masters for a second season running. More on the Masters and the legends that's playing in them, no less, in a moment. I should also mention, we're not going to discuss the situation in the Ibrox boardroom just now. Instead, a special bonus episode is coming out later today. That's Tuesday, the 24th of September. Taking a more in-depth look at the issues surrounding Rangers, both on and off the park. For now, though, let's start with the predicament that Hearts find themselves in. Lee, another one of your old clubs. The dust maybe settled a wee bit. First up, were Hearts right to get rid of Stephen Naismith?
He was on a bad run. I think his interview at the weekend, Stephen Naismith, was pretty... I think he was pretty resigned to the fact he knew what was coming. As a manager, being a manager, having been a manager myself, I know how it feels. Everything just gets on top of you. Everything kind of builds up. You lose your focus slightly, and it's just there's so much pressure on managers, and it's whether they're right or wrong. I think the pressure was building through the fans, through the lack of the results this season. They've not won a game this season, so they find themselves rooted to the bottom.
There's sometimes a clean break required between a manager or a person and a club. And it's not that the players all of a sudden become world beaters the next week. It's just that a clean break is sometimes the best thing that can happen.
I think sometimes, I'm not saying this about Hearts, but sometimes it goes stale. They had such a good season last season. They were incredible, and they were by far the best out of the top two. They obviously get into Europe, and they've still got European games to play. So there's a lot for Hearts to play for. I know they're rooted to the bottom of the table just now, but they have got an incredible squad. Sometimes it just takes a wee something like this, and that's why they've probably done it so early in the season, to get a little spark out of the squad. But they know, and I think I heard a little bit of Craig Gordon's interview, and they know they're underperforming. They know what the fans need and require and want from the club, from the players. So it's down to them to kind of crack on and hopefully get the results to take them up the league. And they've got European games to look forward to as well. So I feel sorry for Naismith, but I think he kind of seen it coming as well. He's realistic. He's been in the game long enough to understand how it works.
Although realism is one thing, but 44 days after signing a new long-term deal, you would have thought that perhaps there was a bit of safeguarding there. Maybe though, as you say, realism in football trumps signatures with contracts on it. Nothing
surprises me in football. You could be speaking to the owner, speaking to the day before, and the next day you could be out the door. It's such a strange environment. And I think they'll have people in their mind lined up, I think.
Who do you think that could be? Tony Docherty, Derek McInnes, Alec Neil has all been mentioned?
I think Derek McInnes would be fantastic. They would obviously need to pay money to get him out there. He's done a tremendous job everywhere he's kind of went. And Kilmarnock, he's turned into a real force in Scottish football. Yeah, they've not had a great start to the season this season, but he understands how the game works in Scotland. And I think he's been very good. And he's very good at recruiting. But the thing is, he would have a really good squad to work with at Hearts if he went there.
So do you think then they're looking for a coach as opposed to a manager? I know we get down the minutiae of what is a coach, a head coach, a technical director, but actually somebody that is experienced in getting the best out of players as opposed to actually scouring the world trying to sign them?
Possibly. I don't know what Naismith was like as a coach. But there was a time, I think it was last season, there was a time where he was really under pressure. I think, was it last season? I can't remember. And it was Barry Robson and himself went into the jobs, and the two of them were under pressure at the same time. Naismith kicked on and got up the league and done really well, and Barry Robson didn't, and he obviously, unfortunately, lost his job. But it's one of these ones where you need things to click into place very quickly as a manager. And it just doesn't seem to have happened at the start of this season for Naismith.
Just quickly, Lee, Craig Gordon has come out and said that he still thinks that Hearts can finish third this season. I wonder if that's a common sense statement, given where Hearts are at, or is there a genuine belief within the ranks that actually, if they were to click, they could do what Aberdeen did under Barry Robson after their bad start, rose up and grabbed that third place?
I think he'll believe that. I think the squad will believe that. I think they've got the squad. If you look around, they have got the squad to be up there challenging, but there's a long way to go and there's a lot of work to be put in. They signed really well. See, in the summer, everybody was thinking, do you know what? Hearts and Stephen Naismith have done their signings early. They've done their work early. Going into the following season, like your Spittles, your Ndandas, really exciting players who had really good seasons for their club's representative. But they've just not hit the ground running. They've just not clicked. I don't know what it is. I don't know if there's something going on within the club. But it's just they need to turn it around very quickly if they're going to get any chance of even making the top six just now. But in terms of having the squad to do that, I think they do have that, but they just don't seem to be clicking just now.
We've mentioned the issues off the field for Rangers already, but on it, a huge match this week. They travel to take on Malmo in their opening Europa League fixture. To find out a bit more about what they can expect, I've been speaking to Filip Helander, who started his career with the Swedish champions and more recently spent 4 seasons at Ibrox. Filip, thank you very much indeed for joining us. I just wonder, split loyalties for you when Rangers and Malmo take to the field against each other?
Very much so, I would say. Look, I had 4 great years at Rangers. I loved every second, but Malmo is my boyhood club, of course, so got very strong feelings for them as well. So it will be an interesting game to watch, that's for sure.
We don't mind you not being diplomatic on this podcast. If you want Malmo to win, you're very welcome to say. That's probably like what I would have to say, because family is our great supporters as well, and so am I. So just for this game, probably my heart would be for Malmo. You spent 4 seasons at Rangers, leaving in 2023. How do you look back on your time at Ibrox? Because there was a period where you were growing towards the league title, and then you got to the summit, and then change happened.
It's hard to say, my second season there, we won the league. Third year, we got off to a really good start.
Barisic signalling to the fans. He takes the corner, the header, the goal! Rangers score! And Filip Helander lands the first Old Firm blow of the season from the Barisic corner. The Swede bullets it past Joe Hart. And the champions.
And then things happened. We changed manager, and And after the Christmas, I think we just couldn't hold on. And then that's what I feel that it's, during this break, there can happen a lot of things. And unfortunately, it wasn't meant to be for us every year, at least.
Do you feel as if, you looking back on your time at Rangers, that it had the potential to even be more successful than it was? You mentioned there that you were going well up until Christmas when you were defending the title.
Yeah, well, I had some struggles as well at Rangers with injuries, but as I've said before, I loved every minute of it. It's a fantastic club. Probably we would have been able to get some more titles, but the margins are small as well. And then from a personal point of view, I think I had my two first seasons were great. And then after that came along the injuries. And that was, of course, something that was tough to take.
I wonder too, with your time at Rangers and when you won the title, a very strange celebration that you had, because of course we were in the pandemic. There were no fans. And I remember that day at Ibrox when you won and there was cheering coming from fans outside the stadium and you were shouting and cheering at the fans through the window. When you look back on it, you think about a title celebration and that you've almost got there. How bizarre it was that Ibrox was empty.
Yeah, of course. But those were the times back then. I mean, that had been going on for the whole season and it was almost like you were used to that.
There goes the final whistle, and Celtic's failure to beat Dundee United means Rangers are confirmed as champions.
We were used to not being fans inside, and the fact that there was 10,000 people outside, then that was great for us as well, So it wasn't something that we thought about at the time. At least I didn't, but at the same time, it was great when they were back and we were all together at Ibrox and celebrating. That was also a fantastic feeling.
A very different Rangers face Malmo this week. Do you believe that the side under Filip Helander that's going into this one is stronger than the team that you played for? Or is it one that's still finding its feet?
I think there's been a lot of changes at the club and a lot of players that left, a lot of new players coming in. And I think it will take a little bit of time for some of them to adapt and adjust and coming into Rangers. And that is the question, and how quick they can adapt. Then whether they are stronger or weaker than the team that was there at my time, that we'll have to see. I hope they are just as strong as we were, but it's still early in the season and there's so much left to play for.
Plenty to play for, not least the European match upcoming against Malmo. What sort of opponent will Rangers face this week?
A solid team that has a lot of experience. They've been playing Europe a lot of years. They've got some experienced players. They're in good form, I would say. They are leading the top of the table in the Swedish league with quite good margin. So it's a very, very strong team they're facing.
You mentioned some of those experienced players. Anders Christiansen, fellow veteran Martin Olsson. Is this a team that knows how to get the job done?
Yeah, I would say so. Especially at home, they are very strong. They get a good atmosphere at home. And I think it will be a tough game for Rangers. But also, I think it's a game that can go either way.
Do you think that Malmo will be looking at the Scottish domestic season as it's unfolding and will look at Rangers maybe struggling of late? And when I say struggling, I mean they obviously lost to Celtic, but they've not exactly hit their straps so far this season. Will Malmo look at Rangers and think, this maybe is a team that's not as strong as we have previously seen?
I think Malmo has got a lot of respect for Rangers. Even though a lot of players have changed, they have seen how well Rangers have been doing in the European competitions last 5 years. So I think they got a lot of respect. At the same time, historically, they've been beating Rangers before. So I think they will also go with quite good confidence into this game. And as I said before, I think it's going to be a quite even game.
I get from you the sense, as you say, that this will be even, that it will be tight. Will both teams fancy their chances?
Yeah, I think as they should. I mean, Rangers, good team, quality players. Malmo, a team that's, been doing really well in the league, doing well in the European games. So playing at home, I think it's going to be two teams that are going to go for the win and not sitting back. That's what I think.
As I mentioned earlier in this interview, you're quite the diplomat sitting here speaking about both of your teams. It's almost as if whoever wins, you're happy. You're out in Cyprus just now playing for Nicosia. How are you adjusting to life in Cypriot football?
The first few months have been good. Trying to adapt to the heat and everything, and a new culture and that. But I mean, life here is good and I'm enjoying it and my family enjoys it. So it's been a good start.
And you're now playing in green and white. Who would have thought that after your time at Ibrox?
Yeah, I had a lot of messages coming from Rangers fans. They were a bit disappointed, but that's how it is.
There you are again, being Mr. Diplomatic. A bit disappointed, Rangers fans. Filip, give us a prediction, please, for the match between Rangers and Malmo.
Oh, now I can't be diplomatic now. I would have to go with 2-1 Malmo.
Filip, thank you very much indeed for joining us. We greatly appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Cheers.
The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sport Scotland.
Filip Helander there, and we've got a veritable smorgasbord of Swedish content for you this week. We'll be hearing from Rangers legend Joachim Björklund in the lead up to Thursday's game. For now, though, and speaking of legends, Lee Miller and the Masters Football Tournament happening in front of the BBC cameras. There's almost a corporate responsibility, Lee, I have to publicise what the BBC are doing in the next few weeks. But actually, there's something about Masters football. I don't need to sell this because it fuels nostalgia. It's enjoyable. And actually, I think it allows players that maybe we remember you with your war faces on when you were playing. This is going to be slightly different.
I maybe need to paint some scars on just to freshen myself up, a wee bit of blood here and there. Do you know what? I'm really looking forward to it. I've been doing a wee bit over the past few weeks. Don't want to do
What does that look like?
What does that look like?
Doing a wee bit over the last few weeks look like?
Well, I'm saying a wee bit in the gym and stuff, and I play paddle quite a lot with a few boys that I know. So in terms of fitness-wise, okay, but it's the twisting and turning and the change of direction. When I've went back into playing football, having retired, it's my calves that just seize up. So I'm trying to kind of do a balancing act of doing a little bit but not too much, if that makes sense. So, but I'm really looking forward to it. Just to kick that round thing about a pitch would be quite exciting.
The Masters event taking place up in Aberdeen. Listen to this for a team. Russell Anderson, Ian Jess, Joe Lewis, Derek Young, Johnny Hayes, Gavin Ray, Kev McNaughton and Lee Miller. I mean, you'll fancy your chances, this old Aberdeen Masters team, will you not?
I don't know. I've seen other teams as well, but it's one of those ones you just want to go out and enjoy it, to be honest. It'll be good to see some faces that I played with and played against as well, and just have a laugh and see what it takes us. But I'm sure
have a laugh. But will you see one or two faces that you think, "Ooh, I remember that challenge"?
Yes, well, that's the thing. Like, I'm saying, have a laugh and enjoy it. But as soon as we go on that pitch and there's a wee bit of a needle between a few players, I'm sure it'll just go. I don't know where it'll go, but we'll see. As long as there's referees and I can buy a free
Remember,
kick.
there's cameras there. And before we go, because I'm being told to wrap this up, because as usual, I'm speaking far too much, Lee. Give us one name that you're looking forward to meet when it comes to Needle.
Well, he's a good friend of mine, but Willow Flood. It'll be good to get a lock horns with Willow. We've done that a few times in our career, but I've got a lot of time and respect for Willow, but it'll be a good laugh.
I mean, Scott Brown, Charlie Mulgrew involved with Celtic, Barry Ferguson, Jermaine Defoe with Rangers. It'll look good. This, not the Tennant Sixes that we all remember when we were younger. This, the Scottish Football Masters, which Lee, we look forward to seeing you and the rest take part in. Listen, that's all we've got time for. Thank you to Lee Miller and to Filip Helander, who we heard from earlier. And thank you for listening. Remember, we're here every day with the Scottish Football Podcast. You'll be alerted when new episodes drop, so subscribe, sign up at BBC Sounds and have push notifications turned on for your phone. For now, though, I'm Phil Goodlad. Thanks for listening. Enjoy our beautiful game, and we'll speak again soon.
This is the shocking moment English football has been dreading.
My name is Moses Swabu, and I used to be a professional footballer. But then I got in deep with organised crime and became a match fixer operating in the English League.
A match-fixing investigator has highlighted 2 matches he says appear to have suspicious betting patterns.
How honest are you going to be with me? This is 100%. Join me for Sports Strangest Crimes presents Confessions of a Match Fixer. Listen on BBC Sounds.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello, I'm Alasdair Lamont. This is a special edition of the Scottish Football Podcast. It's been a tumultuous few months for Rangers off the field as they find themselves with vacancies in a number of high-profile positions, most notably those of Chief Executive and Chairman. Now, there's also been a barrage of very public criticism from the major shareholder, Dave King, who claims the club is in crisis and lacking leadership and basic management skills. So in this episode, we're going to take an in-depth look at the issues and uncertainty surrounding Rangers board, trying to find out how they got to this point and discuss where they go from here.
The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sports Scotland.
Well, to do just that, I'm joined today by, first of all, Chris Jack from the Rangers Review. How are you today, Chris?
Not too bad, Al. How's things? How are you getting on?
Good show. Good, yeah. Looking forward to this. And also, Tom English, BBC Scotland's chief sports writer. Tom, I know both you guys were at yesterday's news conference with the interim chairman, John Gilligan. We'll get into a bit of that. Chris, I just want to start off, maybe if you just give us a bit of background. I mean, I guess you could go back quite a long way, but how do Rangers find themselves in the situation they currently are in at a boardroom level?
I can go back about 10 years or so if you've got the time for it. We're approaching an anniversary in over the next few months, but I think this really just goes back to a couple of weeks and the decision from John Bennett to stand down as chairman. He had only held the post for about a year or so after succeeding Douglas Park, and I think it's fair to say it was a fairly tumultuous reign. A lot of things were put on John's plate that he could not have foreseen, that he would not have expected, and it ended up being a really difficult time for him. Ultimately, he then made the decision to step away. That has then left Rangers requiring a new chairman. John Gilligan has come in as interim chairman. But below that, they need a new chief executive. James Bisgrove decided to leave the club towards the end of last season to take up a new position in Saudi Arabia. So you have the off-field rebuild, if you like, at boardroom level. You have had the redevelopment of the Copeland stand, which has been such a main talking point over the summer, and you have had the rebuild on the pitch in terms of Filip Helander really trying to change this Rangers side. So there's been a lot going on at Ibrox over the last couple of months. For a club to go through one of these situations at any one time would be difficult enough. To go through all three of them at the same time, it really does leave Rangers in a very difficult position.
Tom, I mentioned the John Gilligan news conference yesterday. Just explain, what was the purpose of that to your mind, and what did you make of what he had to say?
Well, first of all, I admire John Gilligan's bravery and his dedication to duty because, sitting in front of a room full of journalists is not his natural environment. I don't think he's particularly comfortable with it, but somebody had to do it. And he's doing so in a time, as Chris has outlined, doubt and uncertainty, and with the former chairman sniping from the wings. There's still more questions than answers, even after yesterday. I suspect that the main purpose of it was to tell Dave King to quieten down, because the one area where there was actual clarity from John Gilligan's words is when he was addressing Dave King. Everything else in terms of when is the new CEO coming in? When did they hope that the new chairman might come in? What about investors? What about a plan for Rangers going forward? It was all very woolly. There was no hard info. But on Dave King, he hit the bullseye. And I suspect, I might be wrong, but I suspect that was the prime reason for Gilligan to call this press conference.
Okay, before we go any further, let's just hear a little bit of what John Gilligan had to say in that news conference as interim Rangers chairman.
The gap at the moment is considerable. That you just have to win your games, get back challenging for the top spot, and then if we get into the level of Europe that we hope to get into, then the gap can change quite quickly. The current investors have invested considerably over the years and are willing to do so again. We are open to anyone who approaches us on investment, as you would be. We get approaches from all over the world, from various sources, but it has to be the right people, it has to be the right conditions, it has to be for the right amount of shares. We don't want one person owning the club.
In terms of Dave, do you wish he'd just kind of shut up?
Yeah, well, you know, I'm trying to think, has any director or any person at the club said anything about Dave? No. Have they responded publicly to enter a negotiation? No. Will I ever say anything bad about Dave? No. So in answer to your question, do I wish he would stop? Yes. Yes. I just say, Dave, please, take it below the radar. Behave like a proper shareholder. Don't do what you're doing. But it's just a shame, because he's a great character and he's a massive influence in the club at the time, and I'll always respect that. I think it's unfair, what exactly is he saying not good? What exactly is he saying is going wrong? Give us a plan and tell me, if David had some terrific plan to tell me where we're all going wrong, then we would read that plan and we would consider it.
Chris, so in terms of John Gilligan's standpoint against Dave King, I mean, clearly they were very close allies at the point you referred to earlier on, 10 years ago, when there were problems of a different kind in the Rangers boardroom. Why is there a schism now then?
I think it would be wrong to characterise this as King versus Gilligan. I think when Dave King has spoken a number of times over the years, when he's been involved in boardroom battles at various points over the years, it's been him against these deals. It's been King against Ashley. It's been King against David Summers. When he had his problems, he was very vocal about the way that Douglas Park was running the football club. It's always been King against a figure. I don't think that's the case in this regard. I don't think you can pitch this as King versus Gilligan. John is the man who has been asked to step in. It's out of a sense of duty, out of a sense of feeling that he can do the best for his football club. He's not come in to fight Dave King. They had such a strong relationship. The two of them, obviously, alongside Paul Murray, helped get control of Rangers back in 2015. They remained close and friendly in the years after that, even after John stepped away from the board after a couple of years. So there's not been this big fallout. There's not been this kind of lingering animosity between John and Dave like there has been previous times that Dave has really kind of come to the fore. I think Dave's issues and his problems in this situation, they regard other members of the board, they regard how Rangers has been run for previous seasons, long before John Gilligan was named as interim chairman 10 days or so ago. So his issue is with other figures at the club. When I spoke to him last week, he mentioned this jacket and tie allegation of people are happy to turn up, they're happy to have their name associated with the club, but as he sees it, they're not willing to do the hard work, they're not willing to do the dirty work, and that's why he believes he's the man to come back in. So he clearly has issues with the Rangers hierarchy, but I don't think it can be characterised as having a big issue with the man that's ultimately just been put in place to try and see Rangers through this period.
There's a few things you can say about Dave King. He is it's a bit of a pantomime going on. It's all being played out in public. Dave King, as the major shareholder, is perfectly entitled to air his views. If he's got problems with the way the club is being run and the way his investment is being managed, he's totally entitled to say it. But to call for an EGM, to say he wants to become back as chairman, to do it so publicly. Now, Gilligan said yesterday that he hasn't heard from Dave King. And Dave King constantly talks about investment. They need £50 million worth of investment. But in the next breath, he says, "But I won't be investing." So it's grand. It looks like grandstanding. John Gilligan, paraphrasing him, kind of described it as grandstanding. And it's in a time when Rangers have so many problems and they're so far behind Celtic, this kind of public spat is kind of unseemly and nobody wins from it.
And the thing for me is that, as you say, Chris, it's not Dave King against a kind of figure who is seen by the wider support as a kind of villainous character, as might have been the case before. These are all guys who, to a greater or lesser extent, have put their money where their mouth is for the benefit of the club over the last, say, 10 years, maybe longer in some instances. They put a lot of their own money in, John Bennett included, who's had to leave on health grounds and things like that. So it's slightly baffling that it's people who all presumably want the best for Rangers. I guess it's just who has the best ideas of how to manage that.
I think that's perhaps one of the biggest frustrations for supporters right now. It's not a case of they have people in the boardroom who do not have the club's best interest at heart, as we have seen in previous times. I think everyone they're there for the right reasons, but just because you're there for the right reasons does not mean that you are then the right people to take Rangers forward. The allegation that comes from some sections of the fans of the board don't spend enough money, they don't back their managers. Rangers have spent more than enough money in recent seasons to be in a better position on the pitch. It's not a case of not spending money, it's how they spend the money. And I think that's the biggest one. It's the biggest frustration for fans, and for me it's one of the biggest issues. You can't fault the likes of John Bennett, more than £20 million into Rangers. You can't fault some other guys coming up, and they will be deeper into Rangers than they ever thought they would be. Now, when they first invested, when they first come to the table, they'll have an idea of, I'll put X amount of millions or X percentage of my personal wealth into this club. Time after time, Rangers have had to go back to that same investor group. But they've had to do that because they keep making mistakes in how they spend their money. If those mistakes hadn't been made, if Edmiston House had been built on budget, if the Copeland project had been completed on time, if money hadn't been given to managers or to other figures and had been spent really, really badly in some regards, then there wouldn't be this need for keep going back to the same guys. There wouldn't be this need of a £50 million figure just being plucked and said, that's what it'll take to fix the problems. These problems are very much of Rangers' own making, not because they don't have money, but because they keep spending it really poorly.
And ultimately, I mean, everything that is going on at Ibrox at the moment, it's all magnified and exacerbated by the fact that Celtic are just doing so well on and off the park, isn't it, Tom? I mean, this notion that £50 million, I think Graham Souness also said something similar recently, that £50 million would is what it takes to get Rangers back onto a kind of level playing field. I mean, that's kind of fanciful as well, isn't it?
Yeah, like it's a number that Dave King has just imagined. I don't know. Has he detailed the 50 million? What would need to be done with the 50 million? I mean, Celtic have 77 million in the bank. They've got Champions League money to come, record amounts of Champions League money to come. They have a squad of players that are commercially appealing, sell-on value, quite a few of them. So in terms of the finances, it's chalk and cheese here. These two clubs, they are old rivalries, but there's no real rivalry anymore. Celtic on the field and off are miles ahead. And that does pile the pressure. Pile the pressure on John Bennett, and it's going to pile the pressure on John Gilligan. It's piling the pressure on everybody at Rangers because they live in a world with Celtic and they compare themselves to Celtic. And it's an unfair comparison right now. It's understandable because they're cheek by jowl in Glasgow, but it's not a fair fight anymore. And Chris is absolutely right. Rangers had money and they spent it very, very badly. Some catastrophically bad decision making. Celtic have made very good decisions. And I just think at this stage now, when the financial gulf is so huge and only going to get wider, Celtic's finances next season, their accounts next season are going to be better than this year's. I'm not sure soft loans from supportive directors or a bit of investment here and there is going to cut it anymore. I think we're in a far more profound period here with these two clubs. And I know John Gilligan said yesterday, and I can completely understand it, what he said categorically, no one person will own Rangers.
Yeah.
Because, wow, there's a cast of characters here who, and Chris would know them all. And do you want to go back to those days? Do you want to go back to David Murray having to sell the club for a quid to Craig White, Charles Green, and all the other characters that followed in their wake? Do you want to go back to that? But, we live in a football world now where the American owners left, right and centre down in English football. They're pouring fortunes into clubs half the size of Rangers. And I'm just thinking, maybe this is where Rangers need to go. But at the same time, I think they're stymied by their past, Rangers. The fear that they might get another Craig White. They might get another character that does more damage. And I don't know where Rangers are at the moment. I just don't think they can carry on the way they are financially and hope to breach the gap.
I mean, the only thing I would say about that, Chris, is if you think back, you don't have to think back too long where the gulf on the field, at least, was miles bigger than it is just now. Do you? So, and I think probably most people sitting here, or most people listening to this, would have struggled to imagine a day when Rangers competed again with Celtic on the field, and yet within a few years, for a variety of reasons, but within a few years they were able to do it, and they won the league title again. So, is there a sense? I think John Gilligan said that, kind of hinted at that yesterday. Rangers are, Celtic are better just now, but it kind of does to and fro a little bit. Can Rangers fans draw any positivity from that kind of way of thinking?
I think we joked right at the start of the conversation about how far back do you want me to go in terms of this story. I think one of the key marker posts in this story, if you like, is that summer after Rangers won 55.
Mm-hmm.
That was the moment for Rangers. That was the moment for them to kick on, to go bigger, to go again. And for whatever reason, be it financial ones, be it football ones, they didn't do it. They have not capitalised on the record sales of Nathan Patterson and then Calvin Bassey. They've not capitalised on the momentum and the money of getting to a European final. They've not capitalised on the first tranche of Champions League money. As poorly as that campaign went, they still had the money in the bank from it.
Mm-hmm.
And at all these points, they've not kicked on. They've not made the right decisions afterwards. And that's on managerial appointments. That's on in the transfer market. And certainly comes to selling players. This fourth pillar, as John Bennett once called it, this player trading model, it's non-existent for Rangers. It's just not there. That's something that Filip Helander had to address this summer. We've seen a real change in the way that Rangers do their business in the summer. The wage bill is several £1 million down. They're going for a different profile of players. But that will take time for that process to actually pay off. If it does pay off, is Jeffrey, for example, going to be a multi-million pounds left back? Is Conor Barron going to go on and be worth several £1 million? Is Oscar Cortes, Mohamed Diamande, are these guys going to be worth huge amounts of money to then reinvest? Because Celtic have got to where they've been, and it has taken time, but they've brought players in at the right times, at the right levels. They've sold them at the right times, at the right levels. Matt O'Reilly being the example this summer. Rangers don't have anyone in the squad that's at that level. They did have when they sold Patterson, when they sold Bassey, but they then didn't reinvest it in the right ways. And so, out of all the key marker posts in this Rangers story, for me, that 55 season and the months after that, resulting in Steven Gerrard leaving, that was one of the defining moments. That's where Rangers really got it wrong. And from what should have been a position strength and a position where they can start to kind of build and go bigger and go stronger. They've regressed and they find themselves just a couple of seasons on. They find themselves on the back foot and miles behind on every tangible metric almost.
Al, you referenced John Gilligan's comment there about the to and fro between Celtic and Rangers. And I think he said Celtic are ahead for a while and then Rangers are ahead for a while, and that's the way it is. It's not the way it is. It's the way it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
That's old school thinking, right? Celtic have won 12 of the last 13 league titles. They're going to win 13 out of 14 this season by everyone, pretty much everyone estimation.
Yeah.
I don't know how many in a row they're going to win in this block of league titles.
Mm-hmm.
But it could be getting up towards 9. I don't know. I don't want to be fatalistic from a Rangers perspective, but it could. Celtic are holding all the aces here. So that kind of thing, oh, well, Celtic are ahead for a while and Rangers, it's not true anymore. And Rangers have to face up to that and do something about it. It's why I think I don't want to use the word crisis because Dave King used it, but there is something existential going on here with Rangers. It's a huge problem for them.
Yeah, I mean, for me, you can't separate the on-field and off-field issues, can you? I mean, they both go hand in hand. Because I just want to ask about in terms of like a company being run, we've got John Bennett's health issues, meaning that there's a chairman vacancy. But prior to that, the James Bisgrove's departure, as you mentioned, in May, and for there still not to be a chief executive in place, that does kind of baffle me. I don't quite understand how any company can have, such a poor structure or poor planning process that there is not someone, if not already in mind, that they haven't been able to appoint within almost 5 months now.
Mentioned earlier on about John Bennett having things put on his plate, and there's a lot of things put on that plate within a very short period of time. Round about James Bisgrove leaving, the Ibrox news, the Copeland stand news was then presented to him, and he made the decision at that time to almost park the chief exec search and say everything's going to be focused on getting Ibrox reopened as quickly as possible, finding somewhere for Rangers to play at the start of the season, obviously, and then executing that transfer window. So he assumed the role of executive chairman, took on even more of a load to try and steer Rangers through. I think having come through that, he will maybe have regrets about that. He will maybe still feel that was the right way to do it, because there was very few other people that could step in and actually lend a hand at that stage. The Jim Gillespie situation unfolded just a few weeks ago. It looked like he was going to be the chief exec of Rangers. That then didn't materialise. John then steps down and John Gilligan comes in alongside George Letham, and I'm not quite back at square one. It's not completely rip up and start again. They do still have names on a list. They do still have the recruitment agency that they're working with, but they do have to go almost right back to the start of that process and say, where are Rangers going? We know how important this chief exec is. They speak about the football board and the other members of the executive team. I think that the fans remain to be convinced how strong that executive team actually is, how strong that football board is. I think there's a real lack of, it's somewhat cliche to say, a football man, but I think there is a real lack of football nous and know-how at Rangers at that executive level.
Graham Souness mentioned that previously, didn't he?
He did, and whether that was Graham saying I'm the man to fill it or not, he was obviously in talks previously. He held extensive talks with Rangers about coming back into a role of some description. Again, that didn't materialise. But I do think they also lack a chairman to provide stability and to provide that figurehead. They lack a chief exec to really drive the business on and off the pitch on a day-to-day basis. But for me, they do still lack a football person, a football man to come in and just to provide that bit of nous and know-how. So you're looking at potentially 3 big appointments: chairman, chief exec, and some form of former player or someone else coming in. And I know the sporting director issue has been raised. It was raised at the press conference yesterday. Not a pressing matter for Rangers, but if they want to get to where they have to get to on the pitch, I think a sporting director would be a sound appointment as well.
Did they have an academy director yet, Chris?
No, I forgot that one. I forgot to add that one to a list. So add that one on. There's still no replacement for Deb Jacobs, which again, people might not see as the most pressing matter right now. That's not going to shape how you go and try and win the Premiership this season or how you fare. But for the long term, we spoke earlier on about the long term, that natural development of the football club, that's such a hugely important role. And it's, as we're now 6 months or so on from Jeb's saying that he was going to leave, and I say that role is still unfilled as well.
The reality is, and please forgive me, Rangers fans, actually it's probably too late for that, but they need a Peter Lawwell type. That's what Rangers have lacked for so many years. A guy who is steeped in the game's politics, has experience, knows how to deal with agents, so he's not going to get done by an agent, who can see trouble coming around the corner for his football club and influence the landscape in Rangers' favour. They haven't had anyone like that, Chris, for the longest time.
No, I think you naturally, if you're a Rangers fan, you naturally look across the city. So how does the Celtic manager stack up against the Rangers manager? How does the Celtic number 9 stack up against the Rangers number 9? How does the Rangers chief exec stack up against the Celtic chief exec? And at the moment, if you're a Rangers fan, these things don't fall in your favour.
Well, look, guys, this has been a fascinating conversation, and I'm not sure if we're any closer to any answers than we were when we started, but hopefully the listeners as well have enjoyed what we've had to say. I'm afraid that's all we've got time for, though. Many thanks to Chris Jack and Tom English, and thank you for listening. Remember, we publish the Scottish Football Podcast every day, so to be alerted when new episodes are available, subscribe on BBC Sounds and have push notifications turned on in your phone. Bye for now.
This is the shocking moment English football has been dreading.
My name is Moses Swabu, and I used to be a professional footballer. But then I got in deep with organised crime and became a match fixer operating in the English League.
A match-fixing investigator has highlighted 2 matches he says appear to have suspicious betting patterns.
How honest are you going to be with me?
This is 100%. Join me for Sports Strangest Crimes presents Confessions of a Match Fixer. Listen on BBC Sounds.